Finally, to wrap up this first session this morning, we will have people from the National Institute for Sound and Vision in the Netherlands, which is the creator for the audiovisual heritage, the national audiovisual heritage. So we have Tristan Zondag and Marjolein Steeman going to talk about, well, we've talked about a lot about obsolescence of technology for playing back audiovisual material, especially videotape. Not so much about the mean to access legacy metadata. So that's the topic you are going to talk about. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tristan, and I work on the Sound and Vision's digital archive infrastructure for a long time. MEM systems, file formats, and transcoding, stuff like that. In the evenings, I like to tinker with old computers, repair them, and preserve them. It will become clear in a minute why I mentioned that here.
Right, my name is Marjolein Steeman. I'm a colleague of Tristan, of course. As a preservation officer at Sound and Vision, I work together with lots of colleagues who have all this knowledge about preservation. Sometimes I give them advice based on the policies that we have, but mostly we work together in creating new policies or procedures from best practices, actually, Laurent, so thank you. Just recently, we published our new policies in a little booklet. So if you are interested, I still have a few copies with me, so just come to me in the, at the coffee break, and I'll be happy to give you one if I still have one, so be quick. Here you have a visual from our little booklet. It's one of the key elements of our policy, and it tells you that for all the incoming objects, we decide whether it's a preservable format or a non-preservable format based on our standards. And what we do if it's not preservable format at the start, we will always try and preserve the source file and then find a way to make a preservable format, and that goes all the way to give access to. So in our presentation, we will see how this works.
So this project started with the following email that I received a year ago. During the acquisition of School TV, we received a number of floppy disks, both 3.5 inch and 5.25 inch. I can still read the 3.5 inch disks myself, but I no longer have the equipment for the 5.25 inch ones. Do you happen to have a solution for that? Well, yeah, we can make a solution for that. So there were a bunch of disks which we knew nothing about. There was something written on the labels, but written with unknown software in an unknown format. So the first challenge was to make some hardware which was portable and able to connect to a modern computer. I have old computers with floppy disk drives, and you can read the floppy in them, but then you just move the problem to an old computer which may or may not work. So these diskettes were said to include logbooks, which is metadata about music used in TV programs for copyright royalty reasons. They had to log these on the TV channels in the Netherlands. This is an example of a paper logbook. This is one from 1951, so it's a scan and it's barely readable. So we would like to read diskettes on a modern computer. And from my hobby, I was already familiar with the Grease Weasel project, which is an open source USB hardware adapter that allows modern computers to control vintage floppy drives. And this enables capturing the raw magnetic data directly from a diskette. It bypasses the limitations of standard USB controllers to preserve, read, or write practically any disk format. And back in the day, there were no standards. Every computer in the 80s had their own format. And so you had to have this computer to be able to read this diskette. So I went to my stash of old stuff and I found a couple of old disk drives, and I purchased a Grease Weasel board. You can buy them ready built on eBay, or you can build them yourself following the open source cookbook. And I used an external SCSI enclosure to put all this together. With two of the floppy drives, with the 3.5 inch and a 5.25 inch one, HD. So this enables you to read basically any disk format out there, except maybe the 8-inch ones. So the Grease Weasel comes with software for Windows, Linux, and Mac. And with this application, you can read the raw magnetic flux data from a diskette and write to an image file. For floppy disk preservation, this is the way, because it's a true format-independent image, which also contains copy protection information, and it can be used to recreate the original disk. So you can also write a flux image back to a disk to recreate the original if you want to. Once you know the format, you can convert it to a format-specific image, so then the flux data gets interpreted to an image which you can use in an emulator. And this is a visual representation of a flux image. So this is the magnetic data which is read from the disk. And you can see on the circle that this specific disk has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sectors, which are the green wedges. And this is a two-sided disk. The right one is the lower side, the left one is the upper side. And the upper side is badly damaged. So the red stripes are unreadable data. If it's this damaged, then it's beyond repair. You can read part of the data, but it's impossible to reconstruct everything. So I'm afraid I don't have screenshots of CSVs or sheets, but I do have at least some command line data. This is what it looks like if you read disk with Grease Weasel. So in the black window, you see it reading track 1, track 2, track 3, side 0, side 1, and this one has no errors, so it reads 9 of 9 sectors of each track. And the resulting image file you can open with a tool. This is the lower screenshot. You can look inside the image and see what's on the diskette. So there we have the files that are on this diskette. And you can drag and drop or copy the files to elsewhere and then you have the actual data.
Hooray! So now we have files, but yeah, referring to our policy, it's non-preservable format probably. So how do we move on? I mean, at the end, we want to have readable files that are preservable, that we can reuse. So this metadata about our TV programs, gets useful.
So that was the half of the job, but I opened these files and it was literally unreadable because it was created with some software in the 80s that I didn't know, I don't have, and standardized interchange formats were not a thing in the 80s, so WordPerfect and all the other software had their own proprietary formats, and I didn't know with which software this was written, so I could not make the data readable or visible. So I had to find out which software was used to write the file. And I tried Droid, which is a tool that can identify files if they are in the pronom database. But unfortunately, this file format was not recognized. But I had a little luck because on one of the disks, the original word processor software for MS-DOS was present. But you cannot use it on a modern computer. You cannot. It doesn't work on Windows 11 or the Mac. But there's emulators. This one is called DOSBox, and it emulates an old MS-DOS PC, so I was able to run the original executable, open the files, and there we have the readable logbook. So I call it a great success.
Of course, I'm impressed too. But still,
Thank you.
yeah, if we look at this schema, then if I understand correctly, we have another variant of our policy. Namely, instead of migration, we use emulation to get this file readable. And emulation is very nice. I mean, I have high esteem of this technique. But for access, it's not, especially when it comes to metadata about our programs that we want to share with others. It's, we don't want to have to invite all these people to our building to look at this emulator. So how can we make these files really accessible?
Wait.
Okay.
So it's not convenient at all to view the data in this way, and it's also not at all recommended for preservation purposes. So I looked to convert it to a modern format, which is standardized and preservable. So this emulator can also simulate a printer, and it can capture the output of this printer in a PostScript file. So the older people will remember that PostScript was a file that you can send to a printer. And using GhostScript, you can convert PostScript to a PDF. So there we go. So this is quite readable digital version of the original document. this is just a bitmap, so it's not text, but it's trivial to put it through an OCR and convert it to text data. So we have 83 various documents, from which this is an example of a script for a TV program. 100 and something spreadsheets with more metadata, and 2,700 of these logbooks were recovered. And for the spreadsheets, I had to do a similar archaeology because it was also in an unknown format, and I collaborated with Johan from the Dutch National Archive, who does similar things as I do. And together we were able to also convert the spreadsheets to a modern format.
Well, I think this explains how we moved forward to, in the end, get a preservable format, the PDF. And the next step in our search for how to preserve these metadata will be to define our zip. And this schema, based on OAIS, for the information package that will be submitted, shows that, yes, we do have these data objects, the source file that we showed at the beginning, and also the master file will be the PDF, perhaps also the OCR outcome that we can submit to the archive. But we also need metadata to accompany those data objects. And so we have to talk together, sit together and define what representation information is needed. So we can document these emulators, for instance. So in future people will know how to look into this source file, for instance. And also, as part of the preservation description information on the right, we will discuss about how will we define the provenance metadata, how we got through this process, so that in future people will understand the good work of my colleague, and we have a full package to submit to the archive. So that's the whole process. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We have time for questions. So anyone have any? Yep.
Very nerd question. What was the format, the original format of the spreadsheets files? Was Lotus or something like that?
No, nothing that easy. It was in an early version of Multiplan from 1984 or 5, which was the predecessor to the predecessor of Excel. And together with my colleague from the National Archive, we discovered that LibreOffice Sheets was able to read those files. So that was very lucky. And we were just able to save them to like an Excel sheet, and including the formatting.
Any other question? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Do you have a plan for, transitioning your metadata into your content management system as well? So mapping fields, or is it just going to reside now in PDFs in your submission information package?
Yeah, mapping this data into our data model is impossible because our MEM system is based on series, season, program hierarchy, and this data doesn't fit in there, and it would have to be customized, and we don't want to simply add fields for every issue that we have.
And may I add something?
Sure.
Well, because we had a choice, of course, you could extract all the snippets of information per program and add them to the programs in our archive. We have an alternative is to just ingest these files as they are. So they keep together as a context instead of taking it all apart. And I think we will choose that way to go. Yeah.
So you see here the program and the music and the composer of this music and the duration and music carrier number. And ideally, you would match this descriptive metadata to the actual program that it belongs to. But then we had to find these programs based on the titles there, which is a challenge for a few thousand documents with each tens of titles. And then we would actually had to have them digitized also, which is not guaranteed.
Yes, so there are two reasons. One is technical, as you explained, and one is also from preservation perspective. I think it's even better to keep it together so future generations can understand this metadata and put it into practice as they want.
So if it were practical, I would like to add these files as an ancillary file to the programs they belong to, but it's quite labor intensive to do that, and well, we all don't have any time, so.
I think it's time for the break. So thank you very much for this presentation.